One of my subscribers, Lori, sent me a video and asked me if I could take the cake from that video and reduce the bites, points, calories, and macros. And boy, I did just that. This is my light caramel apple oatmeal cake. So low in bites, points, and calories that Lori actually increased the serving size. But whether you do it as I did at 8 servings or as Lori did with 6, this is a delicious cake that you're going to want to try. So if you'd like to see how this is done, stick around because it's coming up next. Hello and welcome to my kitchen. My name's Roy. I'm a home cook and amateur baker, and I am here on this channel sharing recipes that have helped me to lose over 125 pounds, whether those recipes are mine or someone else's. Now today is technically one of mine, and there's a little backstory to this whole scenario. I was chatting on Facebook with one of you subscribers, Lori, and she sent me a clip of a recipe that she was very interested in, but she didn't want to have all the bites, points, calories, and macros. I believe she's following calories right now. She wanted to see if I could do a lighter version. And you know me, I'm up for a challenge. So actually, I think it was the very next day I decided, because it was relatively easy on ingredients, I had them all, so I thought, let me give this a try. Tried it, I loved it. I sent her the recipe right away so that she could try it since she was the one who inspired it. She loved it. She actually also froze it to test to see how it would freeze. And from what she said, it sounded like she ate it directly from the freezer. Lori, if I am wrong, let me know down in the description box. But either way, she said it was perfect, and she loved it just as it came out of the freezer. Typically, you would store this in the fridge just because of the topping on this, but we'll get into all of that shortly. First, let's go over the ingredients. I have here some baking spray. You can use cooking spray or baking spray. I also have a round of parchment that I'm going to put on the bottom. You don't have to do that. I just like the little insurance that I get. And I do have those in my Amazon storefront if anyone is interested in trying to find already cut out rounds of parchment rather than trying to cut them yourselves, which you can easily do. It's just a little time consuming, and these make it so much easier. I have here 2 medium large apples that I have diced. It's about a 1/2 inch dice, and I tossed it already with 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, which will be on the recipe. I just didn't want to have to bore you with chopping apples and tossing them in lemon juice. So this is actually 2 apples plus a teaspoon of lemon juice. But you can see that these pieces are not really all that big, about a 1/2 inch. That's about the size you want. I didn't want pieces that were too big to get in the way of the cake holding itself together. Having smaller pieces lets that batter get in between all those apples and really helps it to stick together. I have here 1 cup of old-fashioned oats, and that was the main component of the dish in the video, was oatmeal. A lot of these foreign videos that I've watched myself, and I've even come up with some recipes based on them, such as my oatmeal breakfast muffins, which I will link down below. I'll also card it up here. That is a really great recipe that I based off of something I found. I believe it was a German. I also did a German apple cake, which is somewhat different from this one, still delicious. But they seem to use a lot of oatmeal in those videos, and I found ways of incorporating it. And I did have another video based on one of those videos that I was actually going to be recording today. But once I fell in love with this one, I knew I had to get it out. But I will be doing the other one, which is a lemon blueberry oatmeal cake. I will be doing that at some point, so don't worry, you'll still be getting it. It's just a little further down the road. I have here 1/2 cup of flour. That's just all-purpose flour. You could replace that with gluten-free or nut flour or whatever you'd like. I have here 1/2 cup of walnuts that I've chopped. Now, I prefer weighing my nuts because having them in a cup with all the little crevices, I'm never sure if I'm getting an accurate read on the measurement. So I much prefer weighing them. So that's 60 grams, but that's going to be in the recipe. So don't worry about trying to remember how much it is. You could also swap out those nuts. You could remove them completely if you have a nut allergy or you just don't want them in there. You could replace them with maybe some sugar-free caramel chips. I know Lily's has some, so that would enhance the caramel aspect of this. But you don't have to have the nuts, or you can change them. I have here 1/3 cup of unsweetened applesauce, and that's at room temperature just to make sure that everything incorporates correctly. Also at room temperature is 1 egg, which in the recipe that I got from the video was optional. I don't know why it was optional, but I definitely think you need the egg in there to help everything bind together, especially with all these little bits of apple. Once you see the batter, you're gonna think there's way too much apple for this batter, but there's not. But the egg will definitely help to keep it all together. I have here just 1/4 cup of sugar replacement. Now, those of you who saw my live this past Sunday, my live chat, you know I received some sweetener from Amazon, and what I'm using is one of those sweeteners. I do still love the In the Raw, and that's typically what I will be using. But when I saw this, I knew I had to try it because I do like Swerve, but the erythritol, which everyone's talking about now, is maybe contributing to heart issues. I don't hold a lot of stock in that because there could be a connection for other reasons that people who are heavier are using those sweeteners and they're more likely to have heart issues, and everything's bad for you at some point. So I'm kind of on the fence about the erythritol. But the erythritol does give Paul, my partner Paul, an aftertaste that he is not a fan of. I can overlook it, he cannot. But Swerve just came out with a new allulose blend. We tasted it directly from the bag, no aftertaste, because all it is allulose and natural flavor. So no erythritol in this. I don't mind using Swerve again if I'm using this one because I know Paul can handle this one. But that's what I'm using today is the Swerve allulose blend, and I have that linked in my Amazon storefront now that I know it's good. I have here 1/4 cup of sugar-free caramel syrup. The one that I'm using is the Walden Farms, and that's what I put in the recipe because this is 0. There's no calories, no sugar, no protein, but so I'm not worried about it adding any bites or points or calories, obviously. And I'm going to add a link in the description box for their website that shows where to buy it. It's their store locator. So if you're looking for it local to you, you can input your zip code and it'll tell you what stores in your area have the items that you check. You check which ones you're looking for and it'll tell you where they're located. It'll come up with a map, and then if you hover over it, it'll say like Market Basket, which is one of our local stores. They have 2 items. And so I'll hover over that, it'll tell me what 2 items that I'm looking for it has. So that'll be in the description box if you want to try to find the Walden Farms. If not, I do have a workaround. What you can do is get a sugar-free caramel syrup like Smucker's, which is a little too thick for this. So what you would do is take the 1/4 cup of Smucker's, add a tablespoon of almond milk just to help loosen it up, microwave it about 30 seconds just to get it really loose, and then let it cool down slightly before pouring it on top of the cake, which is what we're going to be using this for. And that will also be in the recipe. I have here 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now the cinnamon, you could swap it out for apple pie spice. You could add a little bit of ginger in there or nutmeg. You can play around with that. I like the apple cinnamon, especially with the caramel. But also, I was talking to Lori about Maybe if you change the cinnamon to ginger, you could do pear instead of apple. Pear and ginger is a perfect pairing. Maybe for the holidays, I would use only one apple and then maybe a cup of cranberries. So you can play around with this a little bit. You don't have to stick to the apples or the spice or the nuts. Do as you want to do. I have here a pinch of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract. That's all the ingredients. You know the deal. I'm going to shuffle a few things around and we're going to get started. Okay, so first things first, we're going to combine all of the dry ingredients, the oatmeal, the flour, the walnuts, the sugar replacement, baking powder, cinnamon, and salt. And then I'm just going to take a spatula and stir this together. Typically with flour and baking powder and all of that, I would use a whisk, but because of the walnuts and the oatmeal, it makes it a little challenging to whisk this. And I found it wasn't really necessary in this case. But if you wanted, you could whisk the flour and baking powder, salt, and cinnamon together before adding them into the oatmeal and walnuts. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is take a slightly larger bowl, and I'm going to combine all of our wet ingredients, which there are only 3 of them aside from the caramel sauce, the applesauce, the egg, and the vanilla. And this I am going to whisk just because it'll help to break up that egg easier and incorporate it into everything else. But just, you don't have to go crazy whisking it, just 30 seconds or so, just to get everything nicely combined. All right, so now I'm going to take the dry ingredients and mix those in. And then we're going to let this hydrate for just a few minutes. In the recipe, I do say that once you've gotten to this point, because you have to let the oatmeal sit and kind of soak up some of that moisture, you can then do your apples, because that'll be about the time that you need to let this sit. Obviously, I did not do that. I was trying to prep things ahead of time. You don't have to do that, but you will be letting this sit for just about 10 minutes. That'll give you plenty of time to do your apples while this is absorbing some of this liquid. But you can see this so-called batter is very thick, and that is exactly what you're looking for. Now, while I let this sit, I just wanted to show you, I did spray my pan with baking spray. And what I do when I use a parchment, I don't just stick it in there, because sometimes it's rare, but I have had things actually stick to the parchment slightly. So I wanted to show you what I do when I do use a parchment round, even though I am using baking spray. So I will put this in, press it down to get some of that baking spray on here. Then I pull up the round, flip it over so that the part that was on the bottom is now on top, covered with some cooking spray. And then I put it back in and let that sit. So that way there's baking spray on both sides. It's helping the parchment paper to stay in place, and it's also going to make it easier to remove. All right, so I'm going to let this sit for 10 minutes and then I'll be back. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be exact. You're just letting this sit for a bit while you do your apples normally, and letting the oats absorb some of the moisture so they don't stay like really dry. So now what you're going to do, and it's going to seem like it's impossible to do, we're going to add all of these apples in with that cake batter. And like I said, it's going to look like there's way too many apples for this amount of batter. But we're just going to work it and get this all incorporated. What I'm looking for is for there to be little bits of batter among all the apples. So what I do is I go through and I'll turn it and press it and try to press those apples into the batter here. I mean, it's almost more like a dough, really. It's very thick, as you can see, no doubt. But just keep working it until you can get it where you need to have it, and I will show you exactly where that is once we get there. We're almost there already, but like I said, it definitely looks like you have way too many apples in here, but don't let that discourage you. Okay, I think that looks pretty good right there. You can see that the apples have bits of the batter all around them. That is what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to bring in my cake pan. And we're going to dump this right into our cake pan, our prepared cake pan, and make sure you get all that goodness in there. And now we're just going to press this into the pan. And you want to try to make it as level as you can. I do want to make sure that the edges are smooth. If, as you see over here, hopefully, there are apples too close to the edge of the pan, I usually just try to move those inwards. I want some of the batter at the edge of the pan to make sure it stays together, because if there's just apples there and not enough batter, it may have a little difficulty coming out. That looks good, all flattened in place. Now this is going to go into a 350-degree oven for just 20 minutes. That's all it takes until a toothpick comes out clean, but if you touch it, it feels slightly tacky. That's exactly where you want it. So this is going into the oven 20 minutes, and I'll be back. Okay, so here we have our cake. So far, it's just an apple cake. It's going to be a delicious caramel apple cake very soon. What you need to do right now is let this sit in the pan for about 5 minutes, so that way the cake can cool down a little bit and set. If you try to turn out a cake too early and it's still too warm, it's gonna fall apart. So if you've ever had that happen, that's why. And I did want to show you, I'm taking my toothpick in the center, poking it in, comes out clean, but if I touch it, there's a slight little bit of moisture there. It's not a lot, but that's what you want, because this is gonna be a nice moist cake. So let me give this 5 minutes. We'll move on. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. You can see perhaps that the cake has started to pull slightly away from the pan. That is another reason you want it to sit and cool in the pan for a little bit. But I still have a butter knife here. Now when I run my knife around a cake, I don't just go willy-nilly around there. I kind of slightly angle my knife blade toward the cake pan. That way I'm not risking running through the cake as I'm going around. But it's just slightly, I don't even feel anything sticking. And now, for the magic trick, we're gonna take our cooling rack, put it on top of our cake pan, and then flip it, and hopefully it all came off of the cake pan. And it did. It's got its little protective liner here that I will remove. Now, that looks beautiful just as it is, but this is the bottom of the cake. You could probably make it the top if you really wanted to, but I'm gonna let it cool with the bottom upright, because if I try to flip it over right now, I do risk it ripping or breaking. So what I'm gonna do is let this cool completely just as it is with the bottom side up. And then I'm going to flip it onto a plate once it's cooled down. If I were to flip it now onto a plate, obviously all that heat would make moisture, which would make this a very soggy cake. We don't want that. So I'm gonna let this sit and cool. I'll be back to finish this up. Okay, so it has been cooling for about an hour. It's still faintly warm, but it's cool enough for me to move on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my plate, and remember this is bottom side up right now. So I'm going to put the plate on here and just flip it to get it right side up. And there it is, looking beautiful. What we're going to do now is take our caramel sauce. Now you don't have to use caramel sauce. I believe Lori did powdered sugar. I like the caramel. It seeps into the cake, because what we're going to do is cover it with caramel, then put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes and let it all kind of meld together. So we're just gonna take our caramel syrup here, and see, this is very pourable. This Walden Farms brand, I like that for that reason, because I can spread it more easily. Again, as I said, if you only have Smucker's or one of those thicker types of caramel, just microwave it with about a tablespoon of almond milk to thin it down a little bit. Now I'm going to spread it out to the edge, and I'm going to let it drip over the sides so that it gets all over the cake. Now, as I said in the original video, They melted down chocolate with some cream and made like almost like a ganache type of thing. We don't want all those calories. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I'm really a fan of chocolate and apple together. That just doesn't set right in my head. So I'm going caramel. It is, as I already know, delicious. And voila, there you have the caramel apple cake. As I said, this is going in the fridge for 30 minutes. That's gonna help everything to firm up. Let that caramel kind of soak into the cake. It is gonna be so good. I was amazed at how good this was and how much I liked it. So much so that I pushed the other recipe aside so I could send this out to you right away. Now, I'm not gonna have you wait the 30 minutes with me before I give you all of the nutrition facts. This is basically the cake, just chilling it to get everything set. It's all you need to do from here. Now, I'm doing this as 8 servings. Lori, who I said was following calories, decided to do 6 servings because she wanted a little bigger portion, which is very much my jam. But Paul likes to kind of keep his a little smaller, so I thought that was a good compromise. Not going for 12 servings, which would definitely bring the bites, points, calories, and macros down, but to go for 8. Lori went for 6, so I've decided that I'm going to give you the bites, points, calories, and macros for both serving sizes, so you can decide for yourself how much you want to make. You can obviously go smaller, but those are the 2 that I would most likely do myself. Now, doing this as 8 servings is going to give us 3 Better Balanced Bites or Old Blue Points. I'm on the Healthy Better Balance plan, which is equivalent to the old WW Blue plan, which I guess is their current plan, but not bad. 3 bites for 1/8 of this cake. Now, if you are following calories, the calories for 1/8 would be 157. Great calories for a dessert. And if you are following macros, the fat would be 6.2 grams, the carbs would be 22.1 grams, the fiber would be 3 grams, and the protein would be 4.2 grams, serving 8. Now, if you decided a little bit more was what you were needing, you don't have to worry too much, because if you cut this into 6 pieces, it would only go to 4 Better Balanced Bites or Old Blue Points. And if you're following calories, the calories for 1/6 would be 209. And if you were following macros, the fat would be 8.3 grams, the carbs would be 29.5 grams, the fiber would be 4 grams, and the protein would be 5.6 grams if you did as Lori did and made this 6 servings. But either way you slice it, great dessert and really great bites, points, and calories. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate you helping out my channel and doing the usual: like, subscribe, comment, share, and hit the notification bell for the next time I upload any sort of video. I know we do have a collab coming up in April, the 23rd, I believe it may be. And I believe it's going to be for quick, healthy dinners. So I already have something planned for that. I have also decided that I am going to be doing this month's tag. I haven't done a tag video in a while, but I will be doing one for April. So there are things coming up, so hit that notification bell. Now, if you want this recipe, you will find it linked directly down below in the description box. There's also a link there to the blog itself if you're looking for any of my recipes. Also down there are links to my Amazon storefront. If I've used anything that you were interested in, it may be there. I have my Built Bar Rewards, Fetch Rewards, Skinny Syrups code, and my social media if you want to follow me over there. I have my Instagram and 2 Facebook groups that I'm part of. So check out the description box for all sorts of information. So I'm gonna go get this into the fridge and let that set up. And that 30 minutes can't go by quickly enough. I am dying for a piece of this cake. And I know you will be too. So until next time, bye.